Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and welcome to Genre Benders, Obscurities, and Flawed Gems, where we look at the best stuff you've never heard of. Today's episode is a Patreon request, but it's also something I've been meaning to talk about for a while anyway. It's a movie that exists right on the borderline between camp and quality, and even if you've never seen it, you've no doubt seen something from it. This is The Angry Red Planet. We begin with a mystery. Contact with the first manned mission to Mars was lost some months ago, but the ship has recently reappeared on long-range radar, seemingly adrift in space. When called back remotely, investigators find that all recordings have been wiped clean, only 2 of the 4 crew members are still alive, and one of those survivors has a strange growth on his arm. The only way to know what happened lies within the memories of Dr. Iris Ryan, assuming she can get past her mental trauma and recall things clearly. You know, it's always interesting to revisit science fiction from the space race. Thanks to how things turned out, most people these days might get the impression that everyone was unified in support of mankind taking its place among the stars. Indeed, quite a few such works were very optimistic about the prospect.
Yeah, but there was the crowd whose outlook was a bit more pessimistic. As it turns out, lots of people were skeptical about going into space, and weirdly it was for the same reason other people were excited to go.
Some felt that the idea of not knowing what we might find on other worlds was more terrifying than wondrous, not to mention that anything could potentially go wrong out there, and what the astronauts bring back to Earth could be dangerous. This led to a slew of dark flicks predicting disaster for any expedition going to outer space.
The Angry Red Planet is just one of many movies in that vein, but it certainly stands out from the pack.
It certainly does, and that's thanks largely to a creature known as the Batrat spider crab, because that's essentially what it is. Yeah, this freaky monstrosity is all over the movie's advertising, and everybody who sees it recognizes it. Heck, the film crew even seemed to know what a big deal it would be during filming, as the creature is actually foreshadowed early on thanks to a pulp magazine brought on the trip.
So Ula ran screaming across the burning Martian sands as the monster Angola relentlessly pursued her, his 5 arms reaching hungrily for her. To be continued next week.
Why does this creature stand out? Well, it's for both good and bad reasons. On the one hand, the design is memorable, blending the different aspects of the 4 species it's named after to make a grotesque monstrosity. The drool from its mouth certainly adds to that effect. On the other hand, it reminds us of how low the budget for this movie was, as the puppet moves very awkwardly when it moves at all. Even for the time, this was not much of a special effect. Yet thanks to the so bad it's good phenomenon, the poor execution lends the creature a charm that endears it to sci-fi fans the world over, even to this very day.
Just goes to show you that yesterday's failure can be tomorrow's triumph in the right circumstances.
Indeed. Now, it's not the only subpar effect in The Angry Red Planet, but it does serve as a good example of how to make the best out of a low budget. It should be clear to anyone watching that this is a B movie with a capital B. Nothing on Mars looks real most of the time, but by accident or design, the filmmakers found a way to justify that lack of realism. It's evident from the start that Iris has been traumatized by her trip, and the only way to effectively recover her memory is to use, what's it called again?
What about narcosynthesis?
Yeah, that. They use that stuff to force the memories out of her, but it does come with one little caveat.
You noticed her memory is already beginning to take on a quality of unreality.
But when we penetrate her mind block into her suppressed memories, her recall will be undoubtedly colored by her mind's own interpretation of what she experienced. Whenever she's remembering anything that was alien, frightening to her, we'll see it as her mind saw it.
And with that little bit of exposition, I can suspend my disbelief enough to have the movie's aesthetic choices make sense. A lot of the Martian landscape, as well as the one city we see towards the end, are obviously paintings that don't look photorealistic. But in context, these images are from the memory of someone with severe PTSD. To her, these events appear distorted and surreal, almost too incredible to accept as reality, hence why she remembers them this way. This is only enhanced by the harsh red filter and overexposure applied to footage on Mars, which makes the whole thing feel like a waking nightmare. Well, a waking nightmare on a shoestring budget, but like I said, they worked with what they had. Now, I'm sure those of you who have not seen The Angry Red Planet yet might be wondering if it counts as an example of cosmic horror. Well, it does if you mean cosmic as in literally set in outer space, but if you mean cosmic in the more existential way, not so much. True cosmic horror is defined by a sense of the unknowable combined with a sense of helplessness in an uncaring universe. It challenges the notion that mankind holds a special place in reality, and it upends our understanding of what we know to be possible. Neither of those ideas really apply to the Angry Red Planet. First of all, nothing the astronauts encounter on Mars is that bizarre. Mars is covered with vegetation in this movie, including a carnivorous variety big enough to potentially eat a person whole. The only thing odd about that is the size of the thing, as carnivorous plants are an accepted terrestrial phylum. The Batrat spider crab is an unholy union of creepy critters that's unsettlingly tall, but the fact that we can even compare it to terrestrial animals means it's not that mysterious, and in the end, it's just an animal. This amorphous monstrosity at the end is a supersized amoeba, certainly large for a single-celled organism, but still classifiable. Even the intelligent Martian, though ugly, is still roughly humanoid. As for feeling helpless, well, that's where things get complicated. And it's where I wonder if what I'm getting out of the movie is different from what was actually intended. Okay, so the movie ends with the scientists discovering one tape that was not erased, and it carries a message from the intelligent Martians to mankind. Well, in truth, it's phrased more like a warning that man should never return to Mars unless they want to start a war they can't win. And yet, when taken in full and lined up with the events of the movie, there's a subtext that paints a slightly different picture. The Martian voice states outright that the crew was being observed the whole time, and it was expected that they would not survive the hazardous environment since they weren't prepared for anything they encountered. Yet at every turn, the astronauts prevail, even if only by the skin of their teeth. First, they successfully kill the carnivorous plant with their one and only weapon. That same weapon is not enough to kill the Batrat spider crab, but by aiming at the eyes, the beast is blinded and thus retreats. At that point, the Martians deliberately interfere. Although the astronauts are ready to pack up and head home, the Martians activate a force field that keeps the rocket from leaving. This means the astronauts are trapped when they encounter the giant amoeba, which eats one of them. Yet even then, good old-fashioned human ingenuity finds a way to repel it, in this case by electrifying the ship. This is later used to treat the infection back on Earth since it's the same creature. When the amoeba is beaten, that is when the Martians let the ship go with the accompanying message. It's abundantly clear that humanity is good at overcoming the odds, even when all seems lost. Ergo, the Martian message doesn't really sound like a warning to me. Instead, it sounds like they're chickening out while still trying to spin it like they won. They're not angry, they're afraid, but they don't want us Earthlings to know that, so they phrase their fear as a warning. Taken at face value, the message says, "Don't try to pick a fight with us unless you have a death wish." Read between the lines, however, and the message becomes, "Okay, so we just saw you take down the worst our environment has to throw at you. We want you to leave and stay away, but make no mistake, we could wipe the floor with you in a fair fight. We just don't want to right now, and we're telling you to stay away so we never have to prove it. You know, for your sakes, because we could totally kick your butts, we swear. And for the record, this warm puddle I'm standing in was there before I got here. You're the scaredy cats, not us." You know, that actually makes the message even more interesting. Earlier I mentioned that other pessimistic space movies depict the universe as too dangerous for humans. If your take on the Angry Red Planet is even remotely true, then it's saying humans are too dangerous for the universe, and in a way, Earthlings would be the cosmic horrors for other worlds. If you're right, that is. Yeah, or maybe I'm just reading too deeply into a campy sci-fi movie from the 50s. I guess you guys can debate that on your own. Either way, I'm glad I finally got to talk about the Angry Red Planet, and I certainly hope you guys enjoyed my analysis of it. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Oh, and if anyone from Titanic Creations is watching, I dare you.